Welcome to a new Mexico City special edition of My Surrogacy Journey, the podcast. I am Michael, one of the co-founders here at My Surrogacy Journey. What are you smiling at, Wes?
No, I was just contemplating whether I try to use some of my Spanish to mix it up a bit, but I decided not to. And then you just call me out.
Oh, let's start again then. Sorry. Hello and welcome to our Mexico City edition of My Surrogacy Journey, the podcast.
It was a mouthful, wasn't it?
It was. It only took me 5 attempts. I am Michael, one of the co-founders here at My Surrogacy Journey. And I'm also a dad through UK Surrogacy, and I'm married to this man next to me.
You're giving me a look there.
I'm giving you a look.
You forget that we're on camera.
I know, I do forget that we're on camera.
And I'm Wes. I'm the other host, and I'm the other half to Michael. And I'm the other founder of My Surrogacy Journey. We created this organisation back in 2021, and we wanted to challenge the surrogacy landscape and create an organisation that was a little bit different. And I think we've done that.
I think we've achieved that. But this time, we are coming to you from our offices here in Mexico City, in Polanco.
Yeah.
If you're watching us on YouTube, or you're seeing some of our snippets on TikTok, you will see some of the beautiful views of the skyline and the volcano. You can actually see it right in the distance behind us. But if you're listening to us and we're in your ears, welcome.
It's so nice to be videoing this as well, so people can see like what we're doing. It's so nice. A bit more intimidating for us as hosts. We have to be super organised, but
we've still got our lists. We've still got our scripts.
So we're really looking forward to busting some myths, introducing to some of our partners, some of our amazing team here in Mexico City, also some of our UK team, and hopefully getting you all of the answers that you need to help you decide whether Mexico City is for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's right or whether it's wrong. Yeah. And that's what's really this is about.
It is. And as we know, we launched this pathway back in January 2023. Nice and successfully, and we relaunched this pathway when we opened our office in January 2024. So this edition of this podcast looks at our brand new, all improved pathway and giving you, the listener, our viewer, everything that you need to know about Mexico.
So let's jump in, because this episode is all about the general timelines. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people really want to understand. It's a really critical part of the journey, is understanding the timeline. So let's get right into it. Michael, what is the typical timeline of Mexico City journey?
Well, we like to tell people, when you factor in all of the lead up times and your legals and everything else that we're going to break down, when looking at the decision, so when making the decision into Mexico, we have broken down all of the components, and we advise people sort of 15 to 18 months of that pathway being the complete timeline, and the average timeline of what it's going to take to hold your baby is what we say.
Okay, from starting the process to holding your baby, we say between 15 to 18 months. But what everyone needs to understand is that everyone comes to this from a very different place. Yeah. So if you're shipping embryos, whether creating embryos, all of those things are going to contribute to it. Yeah. You know, your immigration status, your ability to get travel documents, all of those things are going to contribute to it. So we say, as a rough guide, that you should plan between 15 to 18 months, but it's very, very specific on everyone's situation.
It is.
And also, what's worth, this is not a disclaimer, but we're not in control of some of these things.
No, we're not.
We're giving you our best estimates, and that we are transparent about that, because I think that's an important part for decision making. But
it is.
It's never ever exact, and it's never like guaranteed that that's what the process.
And what we are discovering, Wes, is that we are uncovering firsts along this pathway, things that have never been discovered before, whether that's shipping embryos and consents of donors, for example. Who would have known that would have created the mini storm that it has? But we're fixing that.
And inevitably, everything that we do has the potential to impact the time frame.
It does. like with any journey of surrogacy or any route to parenthood, it isn't always plain sailing, and no journey is perfect.
It's not. And let's just be really clear. That's not unique to a pathway in Mexico City.
No.
That happens in the UK. That happens in the US.
It does.
It's not specific to here. It's just a part of any journey.
And surrogacy is complex. So regardless of where you're doing it, when you're dealing with people, when you're dealing with lawyers and you're dealing with clinicians, there's always going to be those things that throw you off guard. It doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work, or it doesn't always work first time or second time, and all of those elements are going to impact
in your time,
the time frame. So it's like, just let's put that out there.
Yeah,
I think
that's really important.
One of the big things that I hope someone takes away from this particular session is that, being realistic and managing expectations around time frames, because I think often a lot of people come into this with a very unrealistic sense of times. And I think or they've been misled in what that timeline is. I agree. But I think if we can get them to start the journey with realistic expectations and being real about their situation and what the potential for impacting their time is, that is what if you walk away from this episode with one thing, it is having a better understanding of the parameters.
And that better understanding comes from trusting the process and trusting the people that you've chosen to be your cheerleaders, your scaffolding, as we always refer to back in the UK. Choosing that team wisely from the start will enable you to work to the timelines either that you need or that are being told to you that are going to be the case.
So let's jump into the timers, and let's break the timers, because I think that's what this podcast is all about, is about understanding what all of the components
the stages are. So let's talk about onboarding. Let's go to that first part.
So with My Surrogacy Journey, the team, Carly, they will onboard you. So once we've got through contracting and once we've started that process, they will have what's called a first steps call with you, and that really is about what is the plan. And we do approach it very much like a project. This is your family creation project. And we have to be very structured about it, because there's so many different components. There's so many different types of elements and moving parts that we're dealing with all of the time. We need a plan. We also need you to know what the plan is. Because that's really important to manage expectations.
Important.
So, but equally, we all have to agree the plan, because we don't want further down the line, saying, well, I wasn't aware that was happening, or this, it's really important that we all start on the same page.
It is.
And the first steps call is really designed to do that. What is the plan? Let's agree the plan, agree the timelines, and let's start moving.
So from that first steps call, you will have then a pack which kind of timelines on average where each of those milestones or steps will be.
So it's basically your guide to Mexico City pathway, and it really is designed to give you all of the component parts and help you understand what all of those bits are, so you can be preparing for
and keeping you on track to a degree with what's coming up.
Totally. And then that's what it's about. And then once the plan is agreed, we then start moving down that plan, and
what happens next then?
Well, it really depends.
First steps.
So once you've got your first steps and then you've started your surrogate membership, because remember, there's two elements of membership here. So starting the process is all about your concierge membership, which is all about you as intended parents, what you need. And then once you're ready to start committing to finding your surrogate, which is taking 3 months, you then start your surrogate membership. We don't start looking for you a surrogate until you've started your surrogate membership. So typically the order in which it starts is you do your concierge membership, you start your onboarding on that, and then when we know what the plan is, because not everyone's timelines are immediate.
No, there might be importing embryos, they might be creating them in the country, they might not have a donor.
No, but also sometimes people are saying, well, I want to start the process now, but I don't want to be matched with a surrogate till this time because we want the baby to be on at this time. So until we have that first steps call, we don't know when you are going to be needing a surrogate and when you want to be planning for embryo transfer. So that's why we start with the concierge to understand what you need, and then we can then engage the surrogate membership when you need it.
And that could also be a financial trigger. They might not be able to afford that next piece.
It is, because we recognize how important, financial staging is and being able to manage the cash flow of the journey. We talk about it constantly. It's
and
a real important part. And we've tried to phase a lot of our payments to assist with the financial flow of that, because we recognize how important it is. But if you are looking to move as fast as possible, then your match time is 3 months. So once you start that surrogate membership, so you contract for that.
So before match times, what is there anything else that happens from an onboarding point of view? So they have that. We decide at what point we're going to activate surrogate membership, but from that first meeting, you'll kind of get a gauge. And Kylie and the team will know.
They will, but you would have a clinical consultation just to make sure that we understand sperm parameters and egg parameters, and if there's anything that we need to consider as part of the clinical element. So Debbie, who's our clinical compliance director, she would have a call with you just so we understand all of the dynamics, because they are going to play a part in your journey times. So it is about getting everything on the table, and the first steps call and the onboarding process is designed to do that. You'll meet a UK lawyer if you're from the UK. You'll meet your Mexican lawyer. We'll start getting documentation together. There might be some, you might need, if you don't have a marriage certificate, then you might need to get a copy, or we
get you prepared for all of these things.
It's about really understanding what's coming and starting to prepare you so that we're efficient.
Yeah.
It has to be efficient. And also, as part of that onboarding process, we will do an immigration assessment on you. So we work with a third party who will assess your immigration status. Now, it might be a straightforward immigration status, which is great if it is, or it might be complex. And if it's complex, we need to understand the complexities of it and how it's going to impact your exit, and how it's going to impact your journey.
And do we, I don't know the answer to this. I think I do, but I definitely don't. Does anyone else that we know in the space offer that immigration specialist advice, get-go at the beginning?
No.
They don't, do they?
No. And I've talked about this on other episodes, but this is about us planning exit right at the start.
Yeah.
And that's crucial, because we need to know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because when we know what we're dealing with, we can plan for it.
Yeah.
And then that, again, manages expectation around time, because it does impact it. And, we do have a specific episode on exit and the process and all of that, and you can listen to on that. So I'm not going to go into on this, but it's a really important part of the onboarding process. But onboarding is about what is the plan and what do we need to get ready.
Yeah.
And then once we've got all of that in place, we start motoring down it. For some people, it's about choosing a donor. For other people, it's about how do we get embryos exported.
Yeah.
If we're exporting embryos, we need to understand what screening you've got. Are there any gaps? Do we need to get any retrospective screening done, which Debbie will do with you?
And this, sorry to interrupt you, and I know you hate me interrupting you,
especially when I'm in a flow.
I know, but I'm stopping you because, and I just forgot because you interrupted me. I'm sorry.
Shall I carry on?
Yeah, do screening again. I'm sorry.
So it's about understanding what screening you have already, whether there's any gaps, whether we need to get any retrospective screening done. Debbie will help you understand all of that, because, we'll pick this up in a specific screening episode, but if you didn't create embryos for the use for surrogacy, some screening won't have been done, so it needs to be done. We then need to understand your embryo report, so what embryos you've got, what condition they're in, what was their freezing and thawing techniques, because that's very specific for the clinic and the doctor here. So there's lots of components we consider.
Nobody else
considers all of these things.
No, there is no organisation globally that does all of that.
There isn't.
And that this is why it was really important to us to have a fertility nurse, a very experienced fertility nurse, at that point of when you are onboarding, which is a really exciting part of the journey, isn't it? But having her there to really analyse what the future looks like.
It is. And getting all of this information right at the start of the journey is about being efficient, because what we don't want to do is get to the point of ready to ship your embryos, then we realise there's some gaps in your screening.
Yeah.
And some of them can take 4 weeks to come back.
Or your donor hasn't consented.
Or your donor hasn't consented. And so we never want to get to the point where we're delaying export because of screening. So we get all of those things done really, really early on, because we understand what we're dealing with. It's all about preparation and efficiency. Yeah. And that's exactly what
we're on about.
And that's what onboarding is all designed to do, is getting all of those things done. You'll start getting your profile ready. We'll start thinking about that, so that when we get you to the next stage, we want you to be ready for that stage. We don't want to get there, then you have to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's about getting ready for the next stage.
And again, lots of other things are going to be happening behind the scenes. You'll be working on your profile with our new app, getting all of that set up, joining you into all of those communities. There are the Mexico City communities where you can liaise and talk and network with other people that are just like you going through that program.
Yeah. So, and often, and that's a good point actually, Michael, it's not uncommon for people to want to speak to other intended parents who are, midway through or have started the process, just to get some reassurance and confidence from them about how they found it and some of the things that they...
But it's done in a closed setting that isn't on a public Facebook page where everyone else can see what's going on. Correct. We can do it within the app. Yeah. We can do it with hand notifications straight to your smartphone, so you can just liaise and network within that safe community that we've built.
Yeah. And that's some of the feedback we had, is people want community.
Yeah.
They want to speak to other people going through what they're going through.
When they're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all important surrogate match times then, Wes.
So surrogate match times, currently at the minute, we're saying 3 months.
Yeah.
So from the minute you initiate your surrogate membership, we will then match you within 3 months.
And and we are working to that right now. We are seeing that. I mean,
we are a little under that, and don't hold me to it, but we are. So how we approach it is that we look at the intended parents who've got coming through we look at matching people 2 months out. So we're always looking ahead, 2 months ahead, about who's coming through and who needs to be matched.
And what their needs might be.
Because everyone has specific needs, and we need, just because this is a commercial destination, we need to make sure that we are still making sure that the relationship is important, and matching people, intended parents to surrogates, who have something in common, who have the best ability to have a good relationship.
Yeah,
we absolutely
want to facilitate that.
We do.
We don't want this to have that transactional feel where you don't have a relationship with your surrogate. We will, just like we do in the UK, we will look to likes and interests and hobbies, and and that's how we've matched previously, right?
It is. And our surrogate matching team are really skilled at it. They are really good.
You'll meet them on an episode.
You will meet them on an episode, but generally you're talking 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's also worth noting, and I'm not going to go on it too much because there's another specific episode on it.
I know what you're going to say.
Our surrogates, when we match with our surrogates, they are screened. They are medically and clinically fit to move forward.
And that does not happen in any other scenario that we have been exposed to at the minute, where you meet and match with someone who is clinically safe and ready to be your surrogate.
So I'll give you a quick overview of the process we go through. So
very quickly though.
So they get a clinical assessment by our in-house doctor, Dr. Alex, and you'll meet him on an episode. And then they go through a legal assessment to make sure that they are who they say they are. We've checked their documentation. If they're married, we've seen their marriage status. If they're divorced, we see their divorce. We want to know the status because, again, we don't want any surprises.
Nope.
And then once they then go to the clinic, they have a saline infusion scan, which fills the uterus with saline. And then the sonographer can see the whole of the uterus. We're looking for polyps. We're looking for scarring. We're looking for anything that's going to prohibit them from being a surrogate. That happens. We also do vaginal cultures to make sure that there's no infection. They don't have anything that's going to, again, prevent them from being a surrogate.
Or be a risk to a pregnancy.
Again, this is all about health and making sure everyone's the best they can be. And then they have a level of screening, so they have sexual health and
all of their blood work.
All of their blood work done. And we check their glucose, everything to make sure that they are the best they can be. We check their vitamin D because vitamin D is important for conception. And in Mexico City, there's
a lack, isn't it? Lacking in vitamin D.
A lot of surrogates are deficient in vitamin D. So we check that as well. Again, all to make sure that we can be as efficient as possible. That screening whole process takes place in 8 days.
Yeah.
We do everything in one appointment in one of the best hospitals, a really good doctor, because we want to, getting this type of assessment is really invasive for the surrogate.
Yeah.
We don't want them to have to keep coming backwards and forwards to have these invasive processes. So we want to make sure it's really convenient for the surrogate. She gets it done all in one day, and then the results are back in 8 days. And then Debbie from our clinical team with Alex, they sign them all off, and then we move forward. We then get a psychological evaluation, and then a social economic assessment, and then we match. So in reality, once they are matched, the next stage really is to go into the legal process. We've streamlined the process and worked closely with the independent surrogate lawyers and the IP lawyers to make sure that the process is as efficient as possible. And then once the contracts have been signed, which should take no more than 2 weeks, and that's pushing it.
But that's what we're seeing. Let's not.
No.
These are not fictitious timelines.
No. This is the process where
we're
got
actually working this
through this. And then once the contracts are signed, we can then start planning for embryo transfer. So typically the surrogate will be put on birth control by the doctor, and then so that we can start planning, and then we wait for a cycle. Once cycles, we can control that. We can then start the endometrium preparation.
Amazing.
Embryo transfer. So it is a really
It's so efficient.
It's a really efficient process. Now, we are going to get anomalies in there. We might get a surrogate who needs a retest
or issues there.
But what I would say is we are doing everything in our power with the partners we work with,
and the clinical and scientific advice you've been giving,
as efficient as possible. Our surrogate team accompany our surrogates to all appointments, so they're there when they're scanned.
Big shout out to them.
With everything. So that's the process we get to up into embryo transfer.
And then, let's just emphasize very, very quickly. Then we wanted this process purely down to efficiency, but also fairness on the surrogate, that they are not, traipsing around Mexico City doing some of these, transvaginal scanning is an invasive scan, and we want to make sure that everyone is comfortable and aren't having to be retested unnecessarily. And this whole program, and particularly their screening, was one of the absolute firsts of setting the standard as to why surrogates should be screened this way.
Yeah, and we only work with a certain caliber of hospital and doctor, so that the surrogates are getting the best treatment. The intended parents get the same as well. But it is about, we've set up a process that is efficient, that's considered, and that is, fit for purpose.
And safe.
It's all about standards, and that's part of us setting the standard.
So when embryo transfer, that's one of the stages. And is there much to say about embryo transfer, do you think? Or is it just that how efficient we've got to get that?
In our first steps, we'd understand when your ideal embryo transfer would be, and that's what we're always working towards. And then, once embryo transfer is planned and then embryo transfer takes place, we then are looking for, the pregnancy, the beta, to understand what their levels are. And then that is again done through the same doctor. And then hopefully, we get a successful pregnancy, a confirmed pregnancy.
And is that, do we test at the clinic? So from
we do test
home testing and surrogates telling intended parents, we want to do this properly from a test then with blood with urine?
We do blood.
Perfect.
And that's the most accurate results to understand the hormone levels in the blood. And then in theory, we will test again maybe 3 days later, and then we should be seeing those hormone levels go up. Increase. So that's kind of the process up until embryo transfer, and then hopefully
into
confirmed pregnancy. And then what happens is the surrogate will stay under the care of the fertility doctor who performed the embryo transfer up until 12 weeks. And then at 12 weeks gestation, they're then handed over to the obstetrics team.
And our obstetrics team are just phenomenal. Again, a brand new team to the whole surrogacy landscape here, that we wanted to handpick and work with an amazing doctor, Dr. Florencia, who leads on the monitoring of all of our surrogates.
Yeah, and they from 12 weeks up until post-birth, you have that one team who looks after you and the surrogate all the way through. So you are very much part of all of those appointments. Mm-hmm. That was really important to us as well.
Yeah.
But what I think, again, is another benefit is that you have one team looking after all of the care.
Yeah.
And you have one lead doctor, Dr. Florenzi, who manages everything, and then she works with all of her team and manages the whole case.
And she is really considered in the journey. It's really important to her that if you can't attend your appointment because of distance, then she is going to make sure that you're FaceTimed in, you can see the scan. It was really important to her that you as intended parents are there, virtually or physically.
It is, because that's one of the things that a lot of people are apprehensive about with the type of journey like this. Is not,
are you going to miss out?
Are you going to miss out, and are you going to be able to be there? Yeah. And yes, not physically. Well, nothing's stopping you from physically being here. You can if you want to, but it's about being present and being part of the pregnancy.
And she is a great cheerleader for having that there. You're going to love her when you meet her, hopefully. Then the crescendo of birth. What does that look like?
Well, depending on the type of pregnancy that your surrogate's having and whether she's likely to potentially deliver early or if there's any risk that she's going to deliver early or she's potentially going to go to term, we'd be asking you to be in country to start preparing for the birth.
From when? When would
2 weeks?
2 weeks prior to your due date?
Yeah, 2 weeks prior to your, but we are going to work closely with them. So the doctor's very
monitoring
that all the way through, and we'll kind of keep you updated. And the in-country team will be also monitoring that with you. You're making sure we've got accommodation in place for you. Have we got flights booked? Is there anything that you need? Have you sent your pushchair out? The team will start kicking all of those things in as part of the process naturally anyway.
And where do people give birth? What are the choices? What do the options look like? Because I know that's a part that we really interrogated when we've been.
It is, and we have an amazing one of the AAA rated hospitals here in Mexico City. It's called Los Angeles, and it's
phenomenal.
A phenomenal private hospital. And the surrogates give birth there. The surrogates have autonomy over the type of birth that they want to have,
which is really, and something weird that we only discovered when we've been here. Some agencies have been dictating what type of birth a surrogate should have, and that's what I found really weird.
Well, I think it's, for us, we always apply the same principles, right?
Yeah.
It's about the discussion between the surrogate, what she wants, what her needs are, and what the intended parents' aspirations for birth would be.
Yeah.
And it's about finding a plan, and the obstetrics team are going to help you all do that, as well as support from the Mindful Birth Group for intended parents in the UK.
So, Mindful Birth Group, just quickly tell us then about them.
So they, at a certain point, it's typically at 12 weeks gestation, they're going to help support the intended parents to understand what their options are for birth, because it's really important that you go into creating a birth plan with your surrogate with all of the knowledge about what the options are and how that can work, so that you know what type of birth you want.
And you shouldn't feel detached from your birth preparation.
But also, particularly for our hetero intended parents, that they might want to do induced lactation.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding all of those things nice and early, and the Mindful Birth Group are really going to help you get in the zone for birth and all of the components of it. So birth in Mexico City is different to, typically in the UK or other destinations. So it's about preparing for that as well.
Yeah. And there are some nuances with the nursery, for example, in a hospital, and culturally, and how that's done here is very different to the UK, isn't it?
It is. And we have a specific episode that's going to really talk about all of the details of birth. But just kind of in a nutshell is that, you if your surrogate's happy, then you could be present at the birth, just like in the UK. And then once the baby's born, your baby's probably going to be in hospital over 2 nights. You can stay in overnight with your baby, but there's a hotel on the hospital site, and then the nurses in the ward will take care of your baby.
They go into like a little side nursery, don't they? Like you sometimes see in films where there's this window of a row of babies in cots, and that tends to be what happens overnight in a lot of the hospitals here.
Now, intended parents can be there all throughout the day. They can be in a side room to the surrogate. You can feed the baby, you can take care of your baby all the way through, but overnight the baby stays in the nursery. And then after 2 days, baby will be discharged, all being well. Yeah. All of the testing, any immunizations that need to be done will be done.
Good stuff.
And then we will take you home to your accommodation and start.
The journey that you have so needed and wanted. And then it's returning home.
Yeah, so once we know, your return home is all about pre-birth order and whether that was attained and all of those elements. But ultimately, as soon as we get you out of hospital, once your baby's born, essentially, we're looking to then get your birth certificate. And once we get your birth certificate, that's what's going to give us an understanding of how quickly we can get you home. You will know what the scenarios are because we'll have planned it, we'll have all agreed it. And then once the birth certificate is issued, that is the trigger for us to be able to put passport applications in both Mexico and UK or any other international one. It's also the trigger for us to start the application process for the parental order in the UK. Yeah. So all of those things will simultaneously kick in.
A lot happens at that point.
A lot happens, and you're going to be busy. It's our job to do all of those things, and we'll have planned what they are, and we'll then start enacting them. So with your lawyer in Mexico City for your birth certificate, and start applying for your Mexican passport if that's the route you're going down, and then your lawyer in the UK will start will submit your parental order application. And everything will start to kick in. Mm-hmm. But that's how it's been designed. And the pathway is really efficient, and it is really designed to capture everything so you don't have to.
And depending on your nationality or the future nationality of your baby, depends on the current length of stay in the country. And that currently is variable on a number of
It's
factors.
variable because, like, if you're going to get a Mexican passport, then what they're saying at the minute is the time to get a Mexican passport could be up to 3 months. Now, it could be sooner, because there's no SLA or kind of time frame that they work to. They have to process it within 45 working days, but
and we talk about on the legal episode what goes on there.
We do, but then it also depends on what your immigration status is, what passport you can attain while in country, or whether there's a process to exit on a travel document, not a passport. So as an example, Irish intended parents can exit on what's called an emergency travel certificate, which is not a passport, but it's a document that allows them to leave the country. So every nationality or destination that you're coming from as intended parents will have a different exit process or process to attain documentation to travel.
So in that case, an Irish set of intended parents with their baby could leave in 4-6 weeks after birth?
Yeah, post-birth, once the birth certificate is issued, you're probably looking at 3 to 4 weeks, probably more to 4 really.
Yeah.
And there's very specific process to go through with that.
There is. But what we're saying here is that, every case is assessed individually based on a whole number of levers that the team and our professionals are working at behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think what it's fair to say is that this is not a Mexico thing. This is about the thing that, so if you get a Mexican passport, the Mexico authorities have in control of that. Getting a British passport or a French passport or any other passport is nothing to do with Mexico. It's to do with the returning country and how they issue it and what their criteria is to issue it. And that's what we need to really be clear on.
And to educate people.
To educate people. And like every single country has a different exit process, and every nationality has an average time of how long they're going to need to be in country to leave. Now, if you're British, you're looking at 2 to 3 months.
And we are working and doing some work behind the scenes to make that more efficient as well. We're working with the passport office. We're working when we've been engaged with the embassies, and that's work that you and I always do behind the scenes anyway.
It is, but it's about being efficient. And we know that once your baby's born, you want to get out of country. We know that. So we're trying as hard as possible to get you out as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
And you can still travel within Mexico still. So you could go to the coast, or you can see other things. You don't have to stay in Mexico City, do you?
You can do what you need to do. But
cool. So I think we've covered off all of the stages.
But I think returning home kind of loops the circle back, doesn't it? And that's kind of the closing thing, And then obviously, afterwards you've got parental order, but you've already started the process. And then once you are home, if you're back in the UK, it's integration into the NHS and all of the things.
The UK team then kick in to do some.
Yeah, so the UK team will pick you back up and we'll start doing all of those things. But again, that'll be part of the plan as we're going through it.
It really will. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I think I've actually learned a couple of points, Wes. Thank you very much.
It's a lot. I get there's a lot of information to take in, but at least on a podcast you can play it back again, just so you can make sure you're understanding. But remember also, this is just a snapshot of it.
It is,
and your team are there as your support network to be able to go through this in a bit more detail, help you understand the specifics of your case and how that's going to impact.
It really will. So I hope this has answered some of the questions that you've had. And this is why it was really important to get this particular episode out there quite early in this season, just to really to put into context some of those key stages out there. There is a ton of misinformation, and hopefully this episode has really given you some clarity there.
Oh, is it me? Right.
It's you.
Don't forget, there's another episode available. Whether you're listening to it via our app, via Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or YouTube, there's still time to get another fix. So if you want more information about our services or our pathway or some of the work that we're doing behind the scenes, then just head to mysurrogacyjourney.com, and we'd love to help you figure out the best way to build your family. We've loved having you today, so don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. And feel free to leave a review if it's been helpful. Until next time, hasta luego. Hasta luego.